Hey, it's Flippin' MJ here. Welcome to the June 22nd edition of Up to Date MMA. All right, in event coverage and upcoming matchups, we've got Show Fight 20 went down just over the last weekend. John Gunderson, just as Flip predicted, took it to Carl Parisian, submitted him. I hope that Carl can kind of bounce back from this. He's got to get his leg taken care of, and then hopefully, he can make a push. Kendall Grove defeated Derek Brunson. He's the new 185-pound champion for Show Fight. Interesting thing is the fight actually took place at 190 pounds. So
it's the new division in the MMA.
Yeah. So Derek Brunson, late replacement. Kendall Grove did his thing, though. Got the decision win. Okay, in upcoming matchups, we got Stefan Struve actually being matched up against Stipe Miocic. That's an interesting matchup. I don't know that it does very much, for Skyscraper, but what do you think about that?
I think it's awesome for Stipe. I mean, it's a big name. It's somebody who's been kind of on a run in the UFC for a long time, and to be quite honest, prior to this heavyweight card that they had in May, I didn't really hear too much about Stipe Miocic before that.
Yeah.
Put on a great show. So I mean, if he brings that kind of tenacity into a fight against Stefan Struve, who has issues with power punchers,
right?
It could be a good night for Stipe Miocic, I think.
Yeah. We'll see how that goes. And then we got Dan Hardy being matched up against Amir Sadallah. Flip and I were talking about this on the way over here to shoot. Another interesting matchup. You got Dan Hardy, phenomenal striker, coming off a great win, and then you've got Amir Sadallah, who's really good in the clinch and up against the cage. So interesting to see how that breaks down. Yeah,
and I think it's actually a really good fight. For Dan Hardy. He just had a win over Bang Ludwig not too long ago, and I think it's pretty cool fight. I mean, just to see him in there with other strikers, and it's kind of his strong suit, and they put on exciting fights, the both of them. Amir has more of a strong Thai background than Hardy, but I mean Hardy's a banger, man, and he'll bring it. And I think it's a perfect fight just to kind of see where he is at this point in his career. Yeah,
definitely. Both those fights are going to be coming up on UFC on Fuel 5. Okay, interesting news here. Sean Bunch, who is a freestyle national champion, being signed by Bellator. He has no MMA experience. He's never even had an amateur fight. A lot of wrestling background, obviously. I guess he went to Bjorn and he said, hey, I want to fight. He got Ben Askren to kind of say, yeah, this kid's legit. And King Mo also, I guess, went to Bjorn and said, let him in. He's going to be fighting at 135 pounds. I don't know, man. I know Bellator is really looking to kind of build all of their different weight classes. But, bringing in a kid that has no experience, has never, actually been punched in the face during an actual fight, I don't know. What's your take on that, Flip?
It really depends on the type of training that he's undergone. As far as wrestlers go, I mean, wrestlers, they've always fared pretty well. When it comes to MMA, they transition really, really good. And, at times you'll see stuff like what we see with Brock Lesnar. Every time he'd get swung at, he'd flinch. So hopefully that's not the case with this kid.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, is a good wrestler in MMA, I mean, they always do pretty well. They hold people down. They're able to grind out decisions.
Yeah.
Not usually the most exciting of fighters, but
right.
Freestyle is a little bit different. So I think he'll probably be okay, especially coming into Bellator. It's not like they're throwing him into the upper echelon of the sport. So.
Yeah, no, that's true. And that's one thing that Bjorn did say. He said, hey, we're going to bring this kid along slowly. I guess they're not even going to put him on a televised card for at least 2 or 3 fights. So good luck to him. Hopefully he can make that transition and kind of learn as he goes.
Right.
All right, we've got Fei Zhao. That fight versus Mike Kyle has actually been ruled a no contest. Fei Zhao was popped for performance enhancers. He's going to face a 1-year suspension. Kind of rampant right now with all these guys out there doing the TRT thing on the legal side, and then you got guys still getting popped for performance enhancers and different testosterone and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty funny because down at work there's they kind of bring in samples to us every now and then for different things, and every time that you read the stuff on the back as far as the labeling, it always says right there, you may test positive for performance enhancing drugs. I mean, I don't really know who anybody goes to about these sort of things, especially when it comes to supplements, because obviously they are putting a lot of tainted stuff in there. But as an athlete, you do have to be careful for what you're looking at. I don't know too many of the details of you know what he tested positive for or anything like that, but I know that it's almost every label that I see, you know, pretty much hints that they have stuff in there that could basically mess up with your athletic career.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting with Fei Zhao. I mean, he looked awesome against Mike Powell, finished him quickly. Maybe that's the reason why. I don't know. It's you know, it's one of those things though where, you know, you're an elite athlete in a growing sport that's under a lot of scrutiny right now. Why guys do that to themselves and take themselves out of the game for a whole year, you know, is beyond me. I mean, most of these guys should have doctors if they need help recovering from an injury, which a lot of times is the case, and they're taking different supplements to recover from different things. Just do it the right way. You know, I don't know why these guys aren't doing that.
Right.
Speaking of taking care of injuries, Nogueira, you know, he is out of UFC 149. Everybody kind of knew that. The interesting note here, though, is, you know, he pulled out of his fight with Congo. He was supposed to be fighting at the end of July, you know, July 21st on that UFC 149 card. And, you know, this article comes out where he is just now starting his physical therapy. How this match was ever made and announced is beyond me. And, you know, we're quite a few months out from his surgery now. So I don't know if he's being cared for in Brazil or what the deal is. But, you know, just hearing now that he's just getting in with physical therapy,
I just don't get it. It is a little weird. I mean, it's not uncommon for it to take up to 18 months, you know, for the kind of injury that he had, you know, to be coming back. But I don't know. I don't know if it's something on the matchmaking side. I mean, lately we've seen the UFC make some matches where, you know, they say this person signed with us, this match is made, and then you find out that none of the actual paperwork has been signed or taken care of. So, so it is kind of weird. I don't know if maybe they just jumped the gun on that, thinking that he was a little further along in therapy, or maybe he did go through the first parts of therapy, and it's really easy to re-injure a shoulder, especially where that break was, you know, on the humerus, right, you know, at the attachment points of all the rotator cuff muscles. So, you know, anybody that's had a shoulder injury, shoulder surgery should know that it takes a long time. So, you know, I'm kind of leaning to the side that, you know, it's probably just going to take a lot longer. You know, he's an older fighter. He's been through a lot of wars. His body's taken a ton of damage. So I'm thinking it's going to take him quite a while to heal up. We probably won't see Nogueira again until next year, I'm thinking. Yeah,
I was thinking the same thing. I mean, you know, you've got Nogueira, just the muscular damage, the tendons, the ligaments. You got nerve, you know, your brachial nerve running down. Apparently, you know, he was sparring and had rolled, you know, 3 or 4 times, and that's really when it started to hurt him. And then, you know, and then he starts to talk with doctors again, talks about rebuilding the muscle. So apparently, you know, he still has a lot of atrophy, you know, in his arm. And, you know, good luck to Nogueira. Hopefully, like you said, we'll see him, I'm betting sometime next year. All right, top news of the week, at least in my book. You know, I'm not a Fedor nut hugger, if anything, but Fedor, but Fedor, you know, he destroyed Pedro Rizzo. It was an awesome fight. If you haven't checked it out, try and, you know, catch a clip of it. It was in Russia for M1, and man, he looked awesome. You know, he came in there, albeit it's against Pedro Rizzo, but his striking looked crisp. He landed a couple nice shots, got him down to the ground, and his ground and pound just was awesome. Kind of vintage Fedor. You know, so everybody was kind of stoked about it because right after the fight, he didn't announce that he was retiring, and then shortly thereafter, he said, you know, I'm hanging him up. So, I don't know. I was a little bugged on that. You know, I'm one of those guys that just, you know, you get a fighter like Fedor. We were talking about this earlier. I think had he made the transition quicker to fighting in a cage, had he taken his health a little bit more seriously and maybe, you know, shed a little bit of those extra pounds he's got, because he's a 6-foot fighter at 230 pounds fighting a heavyweight. You know, I think we were talking, you know, stepping into the cage, stepping in against guys that are probably have 40 pounds more of muscle on them. Right. You know, just didn't bode well for him in Strikeforce. But
yeah, I don't know. I think that as soon as his pride went out the door and he started kind of taking these other fights, you know, in Affliction he was still looking pretty good, but yeah, once he got into the cage and, you know, that Brett Rogers fight, he didn't look to be himself. Yeah. He didn't look to seem like he was as interested in fighting anymore. It was almost like he was just kind of taking fights just to kind of stay relevant because, you know, obviously they had management issues when it was coming to negotiations with the UFC where he could have had some bigger fights. Yeah. I don't think that Fedor would have gone to the UFC and done too much personally. I think that you know the strength of some of those wrestlers that were there at that time, and some of them could have just been too big for him. You know, I think Brock Lesnar would have smothered him. I think Cain Velasquez could have taken him on the feet. Yeah, it's you know, it's unfortunate, and especially considering the fight that I always wanted to see was the Fedor Randy Couture fight. Right. You know, and there was everybody just, you know, it kind of messed the sport up for a little bit when they were trying to make that fight. Randy, you know, kind of bailing on his contract and a bunch of other stuff. But I don't know. I think, you know, if you're not in it anymore, you don't really care, then you might as well just step away. You know, and I'm not 100% sure that that's his mindset, but it just doesn't seem like he was as in it as he was in the days of Pride.
Yeah, no, that's definitely for sure. I mean, you can almost tell just in his last couple of fights, it's just kind of in his eyes, you know. I mean, Fedor, every time he came to the ring, super composed, kind of emotionless to a certain extent, but there was still something about his eyes that just kind of said, you know, I'm done. You know, I got the feeling like he just wanted to string together 2 or 3 wins and then just kind of go out like that. So, you know, who knows? He may, you know, pull a Randy Couture and come out of retirement. You never know. But we'll see what happens. All right, well, that about wraps it up for today's edition of Up to Date MMA. Make sure and check us out with Aftermath. We're going to be dropping that probably Sunday night or Sunday morning. Look for our coverage from UFC on FX4 and UFC 147. And as always, for additional coverage and exclusive content, make sure and check us out at FightLifeMedia.com, where we're covering MMA from the ground up.